There wasn't much appetite for management to measure methane leakage because if they found out there was a problem, they would have to do something about it.
At the time, ExxonMobil and others in the industry said they were working to reduce methane emissions. But on the ground, some in the environmental community were documenting widespread leaks.
I am hunting for methane that is escaping from oil and gas facilities because that's what I do. I'm a methane hunter.
Sharon Wilson worked at an environmental watchdog group investigating methane emissions.
This is an optical gas imaging camera, and it makes the invisible methane and volatile organic compounds from oil and gas facilities, it makes those visible. All of these pieces of equipment have got leaks. There's a lot of methane going off the flare. This is just a really, really dirty site. These emissions, what's coming out of oil and gas sites, the fact that it's invisible has helped them be able to expand and help them maintain that narrative of being clean, and when that is not the case. The tanks are venting. It started with local concerns, but then when I realized what a powerful actor methane is, I realized that it's a global problem. We need to move about where that telephone pole is. It was hard to imagine at first how much gas is releasing from these sites, from everywhere, and how many ways that they release gas, all the way from the drilling, all the way until it ends up at a power plant.
She kept sending her findings to regulators and the press.
It's just disbelief that you can show someone video after video, proof after proof after proof, and they still do nothing. I sure can't compete with the oil and gas industry PR budget that they use to pump propaganda at us.
Wilson gathered evidence from hundreds of sites, including some operated by ExxonMobil. In a statement, ExxonMobil said it's been an industry leader in the effort to reduce methane emissions and has been using advanced technology to detect leaks.
What is happening in the United States, particularly in Texas, it's affecting people all around the globe because methane is harming every single person and every animal and everything on this planet.
As Sharon Wilson was sounding the alarm, a growing number of engineers and scientists were waking up to the dangers of methane leaks, including the man who'd helped pioneer the process of fracking.
I became very much more concerned about climate change when I realized what shale gas and oil was going to unleash. That's the right word, unleash. This is right. Unleash the tsunami of oil and gas. Yes, that's what it did. That's when I started feeling contradictory regret and pride. Pride that we had done good engineering work to help somebody eventually figure out how to do it. Regret that we had helped somebody figure out how to do it.
By now, Tony Ingraffia was a civil engineering professor at Cornell University and had spent years advising oil and gas companies. In 2011, he and colleagues published a critical report on the climate impact of fracking.
We spent 2 years doing the research, published a paper in a prestigious journal, and what Bob Howarth and I locked onto was this very crucial point, which is it's not just CO2 that's driving climate change. It's also methane.
We're the first people to really try to cumulatively look at these methane emissions from shale gas. It happens in all these various steps. This is what we think the methane emissions look like. If the leakage rate of the natural gas is of the neighborhood of 3%, then it's as bad for the climate as burning coal. What we were suggesting is that from the time you really start drilling all the way through to final consumer, some percentage, 3.5%, 4%, 5% of the gas that's produced is emitted unburned to the atmosphere.
The report was the first to contradict the narrative that natural gas from fracking was a climate solution.
The reaction to the paper was disturbing. I had never been a co-author of a paper that created a political firestorm and a scientific firestorm. At first we were pilloried, then we were ignored. I can understand people saying to me, "You're a traitor. You took their money for 25 years. You did their research, and now you're saying stop." Yeah, okay, I am. We had to endure a lot of personal attacks for no good reason. Hurts. Some of those people were good friends and won't talk to me anymore. My colleague Bob Howarth lost research funding.
The pushback from industry and from academics who may or may not have some tie to the industry, though in many cases they did, was strong. The basic discussion was methane emissions couldn't possibly be as high as we said. Well, this is a screenshot of an ad from Google that we took after our paper came out in 2011. The American Natural Gas Alliance, ANGA, paid for a Google ad that was up there for 22 months before they pulled it down. They discover in the eyes of the American Natural Gas Alliance that I'm a fraud. The fossil fuel industry has a history of doing what they need to protect their interests. And they can be ruthless. That's a fact.
The Cornell professors were criticized by other universities, including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. That year, the influential MIT Energy Initiative published a study on the future of natural gas, mainly funded by Aubrey McClendon's Clean Skies Foundation.
The Future Natural Gas study at MIT, I think we were ahead of the curve in talking about the forthcoming shale gas revolution. Methane emissions are a very important greenhouse gas that needs to be addressed. It's just that methane emissions from the oil and gas industry are actually a minority of methane emissions. Fortunately, in contrast to carbon dioxide, methane has a relatively short lifetime in the atmosphere. That doesn't mean one should ignore it. It means that one better eliminate new emissions.
The study promoted gas as a bridge fuel to a lower carbon future. It also criticized the Cornell methane report as unsubstantiated. Ernest Moniz insists industry funding did not influence these conclusions.
The point is, we always believe in transparency, and so that's, yeah.
The funding was part of a wider strategy by the fossil fuel industry. By 2012, oil and gas companies were pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into departments at prestigious academic institutions across America.
The very research centers that we assume to be independent are being funded by the very industry that they're supposed to be critically investigating. This high-profile MIT report trumpets the alleged benefits of methane gas and fracking while downplaying their downsides. It has laid the intellectual groundwork for the reliance on methane gas as a bridge fuel. The problem is, these are, to a letter, the talking points of the fossil fuel industry.
Would you be happy to talk about generally who funded the MIT Energy Initiative, not necessarily that report?
Let's just end the interview, okay? I mean, if you want to paint that as some kind of black spot, well, go ahead. Ridiculous, totally ridiculous. Look at the output, not the input. It's very disappointing, to be perfectly honest.
Moniz would become Energy Secretary in Barack Obama's second term, where he helped advocate for the natural gas boom. Bolstered by the MIT study, the industry narrative on natural gas took hold in Washington. It became part of President Obama's 2012 State of the Union address, where he unveiled his new energy policy.
There's this great irony of the Obama administration. He comes in promising to be the climate president. He's going to address these issues. He really positions himself as, I'm going after oil and gas. We're really going to rein them in.
The President of the United States.
But by 2012, he's standing up there at a State of the Union talking about how great natural gas is.
We have a supply of natural gas that can last America nearly 100 years. And my administration will take every possible action to safely develop this energy.
When Obama said we had 100 years of natural gas, we panicked because we knew the climate was changing so fast. Instead of helping the public awareness of the harm and what was happening, they just glossed over all of that, and everyone became super excited about this cheap, clean energy that was going to last 100 years. It's maddening.
Because America will develop this resource without putting the health and safety of our citizens at risk.
We didn't take the alternative path of drastically increasing investment in renewables.
Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
It should have happened in the Obama years. And we've exacerbated the climate change problem for 10 years when we could have been diminishing it.
Doing something for the first time, taking advantage of this new resource, you don't always know what you don't know. And over time, what we learned about methane emissions as it relates to natural gas is very, very scary. I think the Obama administration tried to be very conscious of all the implications of the shale revolution. Did it turn out we had it wrong? Absolutely. But at the time, we didn't know that it was wrong, and it's not like we didn't have some of the best scientific minds in the country working on that.